Well, hello there everybody. Today we're having some footage of my very special niece, Louise. Very pretty girl. She's the daughter of my older brother. Louise has been studying singing for how long?
4 years.
About
4 or 5.
4 or 5 years. Now when Louise first came, her voice was fairly husky and she was having problems, and Louise has been mainly doing dance ever since she was a young girl. You did ballet? From what age?
I was 5.
5. And so like most young girls, their parents take them to dance school and then they grow up doing all their dance shows. And Louise was always being appointed some solo singing, and came to a point where she felt she really wanted to advance in the singing, and she came to her uncle Antonio. So luckily I'm a voice specialist, so that's what we've... Now when she first came, she only knew really how to use her chest voice, which is what most young girls do, is they push their speaking chest tone as high as they can, and they think that's the end of their range. And then we had to completely rehabilitate her voice so that it could then go into mixed sort of range above the chest voice, and then into head range where the sound then starts to whistle. Okay, now she's had over 4 years of lots of rigorous training on open natural breathing and open natural production, and we've virtually merged all of the registers, so the reedy chest voice and the velveted middle mixed voice and the high head whistle voice are all starting to merge into one tone. The homogeneous tone, if you look at my philosophy page on the website, it talks about a natural tone is always a homogenized tone, where it hasn't got any breaks or cracks moving throughout its range. And so Louise is getting some really fantastic results now. We're still tightening the focus part of her voice, the ringing whistle quality in the tone from the bottom, middle and top. So she's still, she's got everything smoothened out, but it's we need to just get a little bit more bite and edge and blade into the sound. So once we've got that, and it's quite strong, I normally call that, when it's a finished quality, the squawk in the tone. In other words, it squeals, but yet it's got a full rounded body around the squeal to make it sound pleasing to the eardrum in the sense of aesthetic beauty. So she's got lots of velvet and roundness, so we just got to get that squeal to be even stronger, so the squawk is completed. Okay, thank you. Then we'll just start now. We're going to do an exercise with the consonant Z and B, Z and B, and D, D. These three consonants I've discovered just over time, having sort of thought it out strongly, that they're very good in tensing up the sort of action of the tongue, so that the vocal folds actually tighten in a lot tighter. And the eval helps to the high position of the tongue, because the tongue has to rotate right up, and it's the highest rotation in the tongue, the most elasticized tension in the tongue, all that tension shooting from the tip right through to the back of the tongue, down through to the root of the tongue, through to the larynx, makes the muscles in the larynx contract and force those vocal cords to work much closer and tighter, which then gives us a more pressured, hammering sort of action. That is, the air pellets are exploding through the vocal cords, and the aim is to get them to hit very hard into the bones, which moves the bones, and therefore sound, provided our mouth is nicely open, produces a big echo sort of resonant sound. So the aim is to build the pressure of the air pellet, which explodes here, turns into a wave, and then the wave is looking to hit into surfaces called the bones. Okay, so the harder we hit into the bone, the louder the sound. To give an example, if I'm singing very sort of relaxed and limp, if I go you can hear the difference. So if I'm going that's the vocal cords chopping, but they're not closing in small enough. If I'm going when they're correctly actioning right in close, we get a heavier hit, whereas when they're actually too far apart and there's air mixing, the air is hitting very lightly into the bone, therefore causing much less resonant response. Okay, thank you. So we're going to do Z, B, D, B. Can you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Z, B, D, B. Okay, sing it out. Go. Z, B, D, B. Okay, you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Z, B, D, B. Beautifully mixed. Well done. Zibby dibby, zibby dibby. Beautiful. Now you can hear how that sound. You can hear how that sound would have how it went from a reedy chest tone and through the middle. We start on a low G there. So G in the third octave of the keyboard, so G3, and we moved up, and as she got to around D going through to F sharp, the voice started to go into a mixed sort of quality where you heard the voice didn't start to get very tight and pressed and squealy, but it started to mix the squeal into the velvet, and that's the beginning of the transition through from reedy chest voice going through to I call it the velveted voice, which is the mixed voice. So it was beautiful. Okay, next one. Zibi daba, zibi daba. 3, 4. Zibi. And always remember to open the mouth. At minimum, I want to see on the knee at least a finger distance apart between your jaws. So Z, Z, B, and not Z, B, D. Okay? Ready? 2, 3, 4. Z, B, that's the mix, everyone. I'm just going to lower the volume because in previous recordings the piano was just bombastic, and I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. We're using normal iPhone footage here so that we can be very conveniently brief and quick to get on YouTube. But we don't have all the setups of microphones and sound systems, so please excuse the sound quality. It's more about the information in the lesson. All right, next one. Zibi, Daba, and then Sifi, Kappa. So S and F don't vibrate, but still they are not allowed to pull the vowel that ensues or follows, and not allowed to pull it down under pitch. Okay, so Zibi, Daba, Sifi, Kappa. Zibi, Daba, Sifi, Kappa. Zibi, Daba. Zibi, Daba. Beautiful. As you know, I'm a very strong favourite of my niece. Okay, now Zibi Dibi Sifi Kibi. 2, 3, 4. Zibi Dibi Sifi Kibi. Zibi Dibi Sifi Kibi. That's beautiful, Louise. Now, I'd like to see if we can get from Zibi Dibi Sifi Kipi on one breath, from bottom to top. And the rule is, obviously, if you're travelling a distance between one place that you're departing with your car to another distance, if the distance is less than 1 kilometre, how much petrol do you need in the tank? Logically, you'd think, oh, not much, you know. So you can even go on a quarter tank and travel a distance and be safe not to end up empty tanked when you arrive. But if you're doing a longer distance, something like over 150, 250 kilometre distance, it's only logical to and sensible to go and fill up the petrol tank and fill it up right to the top so that there are no problems on the way arriving there, at least not running out of petrol. So a little bit in singing too, what we do is we fill up the lungs a lot more if we're going to do a longer distance phrase. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'd like you to go from ZBDBC Kapa, all on one breath. So if you can just fill up the air in the chest and make sure that the air extends to the sides across to the armpits. We'll do that again. Up. Well done. And at the end, did you feel like you were straining, or because you were running out of the juices in the lungs, or you felt like you could have kept going?
I felt like I could have kept going.
Yeah, so it was we finished the phrase with an inflated feeling, both in our lungs, and a floating feeling still in our larynx. A non-floated feeling feels like that, and a floated feeling feels like that, okay, in sound. Next bit. Zibi dubu sifi kopo. Now, we're doing this, and then the next time round, the next few ahead, I want to see if we can go up and back on one breath. Okay, so zibi dubu sifi kopo. 2, 3, breath. Zibi, again go. Zibi tuning there. Beautiful, well done. Now, at the end of your phrase, add a little bit of vibrato or spin, but a vibrato must move along the pitch of the note and spin to the side, not above and below. Not like this, but like this. And do, bo. If you can do a little bit of that towards the end. Now, vibrato can spin very narrow to the side or widen, but it's always level. It's always level to the pitch, okay? So if I'm showing that, it's always level on the pitch, but it spins like that and not above and down, okay? So let's try again. Zibi, derbe, sifi, kupu. Okay, here we go. Ready? Now, when we do and whenever we're doing pout vowels, it always feels like we're pointing our lips out. Our jaws have to open to let the sound open out. So we're trying to open up as much as we can, and we're working very extended at the back of the tongue without pulling away or breaking away from the bottom teeth to keep the distance of the tongue from the back wall. So that remains an open canal system for vibrated air pressure made of carbon dioxide to escape out into the mouth and out of the mouth. So we want to make sure that when we're pointing, we're opening. At the end of the day, it always feels like this top lip's just a little bit towering over the bottom lip. So it should feel a bit like that when you're saying oo, o, o, u, and then it's all a matter of opening and closing depending on the distance of the opening for the right vowel shape. Okay, so zibi, derbe, sifi, kupu. Now when our lips feel like the top's over towering the bottom, they're both pointing, it should feel like your vowels are rolling right at the top, behind the top teeth, and they're filling up the mouth. Not okay, so here we go. 2, 3, 4. Zibi, derbe, sifi, kupu. Can we get just a little bit more stretch in jaws there? Go on kupu.
Zibi, derbe.
That's good. Good. Now, can we do that a lot louder and on one breath this time? To the top and back without stopping. Okay? 2, 3, and big breath. Z. Louder. Zibi derbe. Good. All right. Okay. Now we weren't able to go up and back. Do you reckon you can do the distance or?
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Try again. Try the same one. Ready and breath. Go.
Z B double C V Q Z.
Can't breathe. Poo zi bi de. Not coo. So don't take that breath. Okay. 2, 3.
Am I allowed to pause? 'Cause
You
I
can
just
hold the
paused.
pause note, but then move on.
Yeah.
But you can't breathe.
Yeah, I just paused there.
Yeah, that's fine. Ready? And again, go. Z.
B double C V Q Z T.
Okay. Coo, Z. So you're going to have 2 beats, a pause, and then continue on. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Z B double C V Q C B double C V Q.
Now, some people by nature have just longer lung capacity. Not everybody's lungs have the same resistance to go the same distances. So a lot of singing teachers in the world really put a lot of forceful stress on their students to have to achieve really fateful long distance phrasings, and it can put the lungs under a big squeeze and make singing feel very uncomfortable. Now, Louise got up to the top and came halfway and did a little snatch that probably you guys didn't even notice or hear it, but I heard it. So she sort of quickly snatched and moved on without us noticing. And that's what a great singer does. They're very good at hiding their breath where they take it, because they don't go or they don't move when they breathe. It's just, okay, so they're breathing without mobilizing any outward motion, okay, and it's sucked in through the open vocal cords, and the only thing that moves are the lungs, not or facial movements or body movements or head movements. We should never show any movement when air's coming in, okay, and that was well done, Louise. Now, Louise doesn't have the world's longest breathing capacity, and singing should never be about that. Some of the greatest singers of all time throughout history have said that they've often had to take breaths in the middle of words to break up a phrase in order to save the purity and the elegance and beauty of the tone, because some singers could go really far in one breath and others couldn't do it. But it didn't mean that the ones who couldn't didn't have just as much a nice voice. So it's about saving the beauty of the tone and the strength of the tone, not the capacity of breathing to show off how far one can hold a long phrase. So we're trying to get as far as we can go, but at the same time we don't want to end up feeling like this when we're coming to the end of the last bits of last drops of air in our lungs. Okay, so next one. Zibi daba, can you say that? Zibi daba sifi kapa. Okay. 3, 4.
Zibi daba sifi kapa. Zibi daba sifi kapa.
Very good. Okay. Zibi dibi, go.
Zibi
Zibi.
dibi zibi dibi
The more the action of the vocal folds mature and close in tighter, when one has learned to do correct mixing through the voice, the more the breathing is going to get more compressed and locked. And Louise is starting to experience that. In early days, she when I unwounded the voice and reunified it to mix it and with mixed voice and head voice, she was getting a lot of breath escape, and her vocals were basically out here. Now over time, over the many years, we've just been closing it in. So she's starting to get longer phrasing happening now, and you're not feeling like you're running out of breath so fast that you need 5 breaths to get through this. You can do it on 2 breaths, right? Okay, now that's the thing. Breath, the lungs always collapse quicker when you're taking away all the grabbing, and then you suddenly let go of all that, and you're using a correct deep, low support in abdominal and pelvic and lumbar support actions. Once you're using the ones down there, the vocal cords tend to collapse out a bit in early days. So, DB starts to sound a bit like that. And that doesn't mean it's wrong or that there's anything wrong with the breathing. It's just that because the closure here isn't tight and small, a lot of air is escaping. So we have to train the vocal folds to close in. Once they close in, the lungs tend to start to, instead of collapsing in like that, they start to lock, and then it's sort of a little bit more compressed and more equally distributed through the compressed tone. Okay. Next one. Zibi daba. Okay. Nice and loud. Go. 3, 4.
Zibi daba, zibi daba.
Okay.
Zibi daba, zibi daba.
Sometimes her between FF sharp. This is Louise is a mezzo soprano. The FF sharp in her case, and this is not in every case. You'll read the textbooks and they say, you know, the passaggio note or the pivot note in the passaggio for this type of voice or this voice, is that one there? Well, it's not always the case in every case. In Louise's case, she has a bit of a break around FF sharp. It's always haunted her, and it's early morning, Saturday morning. It's 9 a.m. She hasn't even woken up yet. She's half sleepy, so the voice is still a little bit cold, and so it's showing its early signs of wanting to disobey a little. But that's normal. Once she warms up, that sort of completely merges and clears up. So we'll do the next bit. Next one. Zibi daba sifi kappa. And open the ah, instead of ah. That's still the correct ah. It's just not on the brighter ah sound. Ah. That ah is good for expression. Ah, what a beautiful day. Okay, so if we're singing a very happy sort of song, it's a happy vowel. Ah. We open down a little and we open wide. Ah, and we show our teeth. And you'll see a lot of singers working like that, especially in the more popular styles like rock music. But if we want to get a more noble sounding ah and get a nice rounded, darker shaded ah, we have to open up lengthwise. So ah, and we don't cover the teeth because the teeth are like vibrating speakers, and when they're vibrating on the tooth, they deflect the sound out of the mouth. So if we cover ah, the sound goes backwards, but it doesn't come forwards. If we open our mouth lengthwise and show a little bit of teeth, top and bottom, keeping our tongue forward away from the back wall, well then the sound's going to come out. Ah, and it comes out nice and round and full. So let's try and do that. Zibi daba sifi kappa. Ready? Go.
Zibi daba, sifi kappa, zibi daba, sifi kappa.
Beautiful. Zibi dibi sifi kipi. Now, the golden age rule of bel cantismo, they always used to say, I mean, there was not much talk about positioning of tongue and showing your teeth and all. This is stuff that I've understood over many years of observation of natural singers, that they do that instinctively. So, but the main rule, if there was one in bel cantismo, which was a style and a manner in which one had to sing a tune, it wasn't a physical approach to the voice, which is what a lot of people believe. So there is no bel canto vocal technique, even though in some of the old texts of the 1900s or in the 1800s and 1900s by some of the greatest voice teachers on earth at the time, they used to call it bel canto vocal technique with the old Italian terms. But it really wasn't a technique, as in a physical approach to the voice. It was just a style in which how you had to sing a melodic melody. But the one thing they did say in reference to voice was, in order to sing, you must open your mouth. And not sing like this, but sing like that. Okay, so we have to open our mouth. When we're opening, it can either open sideways, that way, or we open this way. Now, if you want sound to come out and sound full and round, you better start thinking lengthwise. And they always used to say, you know, the natural smile. The natural smile, basically, if you show a bit of your top and bottom teeth, keeping your tongue bayed at the front, or parked at the front of the bottom teeth, the natural smile affects this area. It should not come up into your forehead or eyes or maxillary cheeks here. If you do that, you're going to get tics and things start spasming here after a while. And that's the muscles in the face telling you, what are you doing? I don't like to be in this position. So you don't want to go there. So if we're opening in this area, then the eyes assume a gentler sort of smiling, sort of contour in the facial muscles. But we're not going up there and disturbing the facial muscles. So all openings have to use the muscles around the chin, the jaws, the lips, and the cheeks, the lower cheek areas. Okay, so ah. Okay, and we get a nice dark and bright sort of ah at the same time, which I used to say chiaro, meaning bright, scuro, dark. Okay, so the bright part of the voice is the that's the squeal, and then we open the mouth to get the darker mix. And when you got the squeal in the middle and you got the body around it, that's called chiaro scuro. Right, so we want the chiaro scuro tone, or what I call the squawk. All right. Next one. Zibi dubu sifi kopo. This one's a tricky one. Do we? Number 4. Zibi dibi sifi kipi. Okay, number 4. Ready, 2, 3, go.
Zibi, dibi,
Open the E.
sifi, kipi.
Very good.
Zibi, dibi, sifi, kipi.
Now this is heading into G sharps or A flats, and for a mezzo soprano, it's where when you're in the middle area, mezzo sopranos love to hang around middle zone of range. Sopranos love to hang around sort of above the middle and upper head range. Contraltos like to hang around the middle and lower zone. So this would be the mezzo soprano range, soprano, contralto. Once a mezzo starts to reach a top end, the voice really starts to narrow off and get very thin sounding. That's normal. We can stretch that over a period of time, over so many years, and it can sort of initially sort of do this, right? And we can expand that a bit more by more stretch work on the piano. But Louise has been doing a fair bit of tuning of the consonants, and it's the first time I've come back in doing vocal stretching after 3 or 4 months. So her voice has lost a bit of the stretch at the top end, but we're bringing that all back because she's now fine-tuned into the sounds of the letters. Okay, next bit. Zibi dubu sifi kopo. 2, ready, go.
Zibi, dubu, sifi, kopo. Zibi, dubu, sifi, kopo.
And we'll come down now. She can go higher, but we don't need to go higher. Zibi, döbe, sifi, kupu. Ready, 2, ready, go.
Z.
Give me a stronger Z, because the Z, if you really buzz it nice and hard and strong on the teeth and on the roof of the mouth above the top teeth, if you hit onto the hard palate and the teeth, and it really sets off a big strong vibration, it really turns on the spine. Your spine is the vibrator that makes everything at the front resonate and echo, and wells of sound come through and well out into the theatre. So you don't want to go zibby-dibby, but zibby-dibby, because the Z sets off the tension action in the tongue, which makes the vocal cords tighten in. So you want to really intensify that pronunciation. Z. Go.
Z-B-D-B.
Do it again, try it again. Z-B-D-B. Right, and get it really rolling. Go. Z. Go. Beautiful, very nice. Okay. Where does this kind of singing take us? It can take us anywhere. With this sound now, what I've done is I've balanced her tone. It's not a finished tone yet, but it's coming to finishing stages. It's all the registers are uniting now, and as you can see, that F sharp isn't flipping now. Her voice is sort of warmed up. You can go right through into R&B, pop, blues, jazz, opera, classical, whatever. This sound is her unique sound of coming from her body and from open channels in her throat. So it's not a fabricated sound that imitates someone else's shade or timbre of someone else's voice. It's her sound. If you actually hear her speak, she uses the same sound in her speech. So that's what open natural production is all about. So the natural tone is your speaking tone, and all we're doing is we're learning to just open up the physiology to create more echo coming out of the mouth into the room and building more sort of resonant tone. Okay, here we go. Zibby dibby. Z. Okay, 3, 4.
Z-B-D-B.
I have sort of had a look at some of the other videos we've put up on our website, and unfortunately the sound that I'm hearing in the room, which is very enveloping and full and warm and rounded and velveted, you don't get to hear that off the microphone of the iPhone. So the iPhones unfortunately pick up a lot of the buzz and the squeal in the voice, but you don't get to hear much of the velvet and the roundness of the sound. So sorry about the sound quality. But the actual sound in the room here is very beautiful. Okay, next bit. So it's going to sound more squeaky and squealy off this sort of recording because we lack the recording machinery to get the right sort of mix and sound quality. Zibidaba, zibidaba. Okay, ready? Z, 2, 3, 4.
Z-B-D-B.
Good. And then the next one is Z. Which one?
Number 3.
Number 3, Zibi Daba Sifikapa. Go. Zibi Daba
Sifikapa. Zibi Daba.
nice. Okay, zibi dibi, sifi kipi, zi, go.
Zibi dibi, sifi kipi, zibi dibi, sifi kipi.
Zibi dubu, sifi corpo. Go.
Zibi
Stretch your jaws.
dubu, sifi corpo, zibi dubu, sifi corpo.
Very good. Zibi durba, sifi kupu. Always, we tend to want to go, but let's go, and sifi kupu. Z, go. Zibi. Now this is how you can tell that she's a mezzo-soprano, not a soprano, because mezzos love this sort of zone, sort of around C up to about a D, E. Okay, we're talking about, so we're talking around on a C4 up to about an E5. Okay, C4 to E5 is a strong area for soprano, and their voice gets very beefy and full. Around an E, going through F sharp, the voice starts to then narrow off, and it starts to get very thin and fine sounding. So this is a very strong area, and as you can hear, she's got a beautiful ringing, sort of full-bodied sound, and that's proof that it's a mezzo-soprano. Mezzo-sopranos and sopranos can virtually hit high Cs. I've got mezzo-sopranos, I mean, even Louise has gone way up to top Ds, E's, E-flats and E's, but she's not a soprano because the tone just lacks all the right sort of formation and body that is required to be. Firstly, for a soprano, it's a lot sort of more manageable. I'm not saying comfortable, but manageable to hit a top D or an E flat E. More easily manageable with a strong sound than a soprano. Soprano tends to get a little bit more, lose the fibre and the tone when they're hitting up to about a G sharp A. There are exceptional cases of sopranos that, mezzo-sopranos that can actually hit a high C, full-bodied, resonant, ringing tones, and they can be mistaken for a dramatic soprano. But they're actually really mezzos because their comfort zone is hanging around here. Every now and then they can reach a high note, but they don't want to hang around this area too much. They want to get back in this area where the throat is floating and not pressured underneath to have to sustain this higher zone range, which is not their natural sort of zone. They tend to want to hang around more this area, and that's what Louise is. Okay, so what are we on to now?
I think it might be back to number 1 again.
Yep, zibi dibi zibi dibi. Go. Zibi dibi. Sing out. Very good. Okay. And now the next one, zibi daba, zibi daba. Go.
Zibi daba, zibi daba, zibi daba, zibi daba.
Zibi daba sifi kappa.
Zibi daba,
mix there, ladies and gentlemen. Notice it didn't lose much fibre in the sound.
Si, mi, do, si, fi, co, po. Si, mi, de, be.
Going in the mix there.
Si, fi, cu, pu. Si, bi, de, be. Si, fi, cu, pu.
Zippy dabba, zippy copper.
Si, mi, da, ba. Si, fi, co, po. Si, bi, da, ba. Si, fi, co, po.
Zippy dibby, zippy dibby. Oh, really digging into these dark purry chest tones, and we want to open these up, okay? Because it's like turning on the bass on the stereo and bringing up more bass into the stereo sound, which makes the sound more attractive. If the sound is all squeal, in other words, all treble on the stereo and no bass, it can be very harsh to the eardrum to want to listen to that sort of sound. But we've got to have that right dark shade in the mouth mixed with the squeal in the mouth, so that it's like 50% bass button turned on and 50% treble. Once we've got the 50-50, it becomes quite pleasing to listen to on the stereo system. Even to our eardrum listening to a voice, we want to hear both qualities. So if we're trying to bring more bass into the colour and timbre of the tone, we need to explore this low area and really make sure it's compressed, sort of reedy tone, not breathy tone. Okay, so but there comes to a point where you reach your low end and then you're going under the low end. They're called the root notes, and they're the ones that get breathy in order to be able to get lower and lower the sound. So she's still not in the root notes yet. So here we go, next one, zibi daba.
Zibi daba.
Zibi, zib. Do it again, start again. Good. Zibidaba sifikapa.
Zibidaba sifikapa. Zibidaba sifikapa.
Now that's a nice D in the third octave on the keyboard, so it's a D3. Okay, it's pretty low for a mezzo. Generally, as I was saying, voice types, if you read the textbooks, they tend to categorize voices and how generally the voice types, where their passaggio breaks are and this and that. But remember, that is just a generalization. Every voice is unique and individual. You can get 10 mezzo-sopranos or 10 sopranos, and you'll find that the soprano voices have different weights, sort of sizes, and therefore lighter soprano voices can have different sort of spots where their voices go through different sort of zones of breaking than the heavier sopranos, and that also occurs for mezzo-sopranos and contraltos. Generally, it's sort of similarly around the same areas, but not always on the exact same note, where one voice type from the next, even if in the same category voice type, but different weight category, it can vary between a semitone and a tone distance, where one voice compared to the other will change or turn. Okay, so next bit. So each singer needs to find their placements and feel where those changes are, and then with the teacher to work on smoothing out that flip or cracking area till it dissolves. All right, so Zibidaba Sifikapa, is that right?
Yeah.
Now open your mouth. This is going to feel unnatural to open up on this low. So you've got to go real low. I've lost my voice, I've had reflux all night, so that's why I'm not in Korea. So anyway, do it again. Well, that's a C3, ladies and gents, and she's only a mezzo, she's not even a contralto. For a mezzo to have gone well below a G3, down to a C3, you have to have a very open throat to have that flexibility to reach that low. So it's proof that this technique is amazing, because it enables us to reach notes that otherwise would be almost impossible to reach if we had a bit of a blockage somewhere inside here or behind the back of the tongue. All right, now we'll stop it at this point, but I'm going to turn it on again and we're going to try and do a song or two. Hopefully see what Louise has got in store for us. Thank you.